Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Doctors of Running podcast, where we, a group of doctors of physical therapy, discuss the art and science of running and the stuff that we put on our feet. Today at the roundtable, we have the founder of Doctors of Running, Dr. Matthew Klein, and Dr. David Salas, and then myself, I'm Nathan Brown. And today we are going to be doing a this or that episode where we are going to be pitting two shoes against each other, and we would talk about which one we would pick and why, potentially for ourselves or potentially for certain populations, depending on where our minds go. These are a lot of shoes that we've tested over the last about 6 months to a year, and we're trying to take shoes that fall into similar categories and just talk about why we may pick one or another. But before we do that, do either of you want to talk a little bit about your current running and what you're up to? Or is it kind of like, running's kind of the worst, let's not talk about it? Where are we at?
I think we both are kind of, neither of us are training at full capacity at the moment for various reasons and reasons to be further understood. So I think on that side of things, but learning to enjoy the easy run more, trying to embrace it.
Mm-hmm. How's that going?
It's good, man. Trying to smell the roses a little bit. Really trying to, what I started doing was as I'm sure a lot of our listeners do, is listen to podcasts while I was running. And I was doing that for quite a bit, almost every single run for like a while now, like for the last couple months. And the last few runs I've actually unplugged. And it's been kind of nice to just fully be, get all the good sounds and full experience of being out running. With that said, come, 5 a.m. tomorrow morning, I probably will plug in again because it's a little bit more joyful when it's dark outside.
Something, some kind of company.
But I think when it's like, when you have visibility and you're in a beautiful area, sometimes it's nice to soak all that in.
Yeah. I'd agree. I think, these seasons where you can't run how you and I are wanting to, it definitely, I hope, shows the other people who are following along with us that nobody is immune to something going wrong and not being exactly as you want it to. And I know for myself as a PT who works with runners, that was like a hard pill to swallow for myself too, from if I am unable to run at full capacity all the time, who am I to be helping somebody else? And I think that sort of imposter kind of syndrome, or just the self-doubt and questioning my ability to help others, has been something I remember that happening a ton early in my career as well. Thankfully, 10 years in, I've become a lot more secure in those realities that I'm a human and I either make bad choices or just bad stuff happens regarding my body sometimes. And you just gotta move forward. What about you, Matt? You run in at all? What are you up to?
Yeah, fortunately, I'm able to maintain mileage. Shout out to some of my George Fox students, Cade and Ethan, who have been dragging me, or I think actually vice versa, sometimes dragging the other out and handling me pushing a stroller. But it's been, it's been interesting. Regina's doing really well as she's actually progressing quite fantastically postpartum. Now Isabella's almost a year and a half now, so things are really coming together. For me, it's just honestly just trying to stay healthy and not have any MSK issues. Probably the biggest new thing is the last 2 months have integrated probably the most aggressive plyometrics I've ever done in my life. And just going, hey, can I see what happens as I try to reload some tendons and some old tendinopathies finally, trying to see what I can build back and maybe set a foundation for later when the other parts of me aren't working as well. So yeah, it's been interesting to do this because I've never done, I've done weight training pretty 200-pound kettlebell lifts, stuff like that for a year or so. And now to get into this jumping, I've never done this before. And so it's been interesting to watch what's happened. And I don't know if this is the effect, but I've been able to handle a lot more neutral shoes recently, like the Peg Premium, for example. I would have never been able to handle, and I just took it out for a long run this morning and I survived. And that was interesting. Mm-hmm. So performance-wise, not, meh, but other things that are changing as I kind of mess around with stuff and go, that's interesting. I wonder if there's something to that, or is this just an N of one and there's too many variables going on? But yeah, some different things that I'm observing that are very, very interesting.
Cool. Well, we will get to talk about the Peg Premium today. That is on the docket with some of the this or that's that we're going to go through. So let's jump right in. So our first this or that is between two heavyweight daily trainers, kind of like stand-alone shoes that have been kind of the shoe in a lineup for two major running companies. And it's a this or that between the Saucony Ride 18 and the New Balance 880 version 15. So, David, do you want to tell us a little bit about these models and then your pick for this or that?
Yeah. Those are two of like my favorite shoes right now, period. So I don't like this question. Okay, we'll start off with the Saucony Ride 18. Well, I guess both of them are kind of the flagship neutral trainer for their respective company.
That's the word I was looking for. I said heavyweights. I'm like, I meant something different. It's flagship. Take it away.
Yeah, one's Mike Tyson and the other one is, I don't know, whatever. Yeah, so Saucony Ride 18. The Ride 17 received a pretty big update last year with the Power Run Plus edition. And the Power Run Plus midsole continues kind of like that Beta TPU. Very durable. It's pretty compliant and soft, but it still holds its structure well. Again, not a review here, but it's softer than the previous rides because of the foam. I think they cleaned up the upper a lot in the Ride 18. It almost feels kind of like a slightly more, slimmed up Triumph, which is kind of what they were shooting for, I think. So they did it. 880 15, little bit firmer, uses the Fresh Foam X midsole, but there's a little bit more of it. It's a little bit higher now, right? It's like 42, 43?
It's 40.5. And then,
okay.
Yeah, now it's a 6 millimeter drop. So they've maximalized it.
Yeah, and like I would say like both of these shoes, plenty of cushion on foot. 880, just though there's more foam, feels a little bit heavier, feels a little bit more daily trainer-esque. Mm-hmm. Whereas like the Ride 18 definitely still feels daily trainer-esque, but it feels like you have the option to pick it up a little bit more.
And that's reflected in weight too. I think 9.7 in the Ride 18 and 10.6. So just about an ounce difference between those two as well. 10.6 in the 880. Yeah,
both durable workhorse neutral trainers. I really like both, but I think I like having the touch of versatility with the Ride 18. You guys know how I organize like my shoes. And right now, like I kind of do it where it's like top shelf, second shelf, or kind of like my like awards and honorable mentions. And then everything else is like what I need to run in. I can test or whatever. And I have it kind of, organized. But right now, respectively, for the start of this year, these are the two in that neutral trainer category there. And so they kind of alternate every once in a while, but I think I'm going to go Ride 18. I just like having that slight little bit of versatility. And it's still durable enough for daily training. You could still take it on long runs. I've taken it on long runs. So I feel like, and the upper just fits me a little bit better than the 17. I think that was the big switch between the two models where like the 17, I wasn't entirely sold on. Mm-hmm. But like the 18, it just holds my foot really well. It's the material itself feels a little softer, and it just feels just a little bit more premium for the price point and where it's at in the market. So I think I'm going to go Ride 18.
Great. Yeah, and they come in at the same price point too, which I think is really interesting. Matt, what do you think?
I'm also very split on this, and ironically, I think the 880 works better for my mechanics. Now it's become a stable neutral shoe. Like the midfoot's way wider, the sidewalls are more significant. It's not the same 880 that we used to have. So it does work really well for me, but it's kind of similar where I really like the lighter weight trainers. And I feel like the Ride has gotten back. It was a little heavier. I'm really happy the 18 dropped a little bit of weight. But I feel like that snappy midsole just works better for kind of what I want in a shoe. Is if I wasn't testing all these different shoes, I'd want something that could handle a little bit of everything. And that's still one of the few daily trainers out there that can definitely, like flagship, not like your specialized performance trainers, but one of those shoes that feels like a performance trainer that I can definitely do workouts in. I can pick up the pace, but it does have enough cushioning. And I also kind of like that, and this is a different conversation, that it hasn't gone above 40 millimeters, that it's kind of stayed and like it's still tall. It's not a like low slung shoe, but it's still kind of in that moderate stack height where things are getting more responsive, which I personally appreciate. So while even though that midfoot doesn't quite work as well as me, I like the Ride 18 because it's kind of sticking to its guns in that it's getting more responsive. It's really that ride that we have experienced in the past where it's lighter, responsive. It can be a daily trainer. The 880, I appreciate where they're going. I just feel like there are too many shoes on the market like that, and you're starting to see a little bit of overlap with some of the other, even within the New Balance offerings. Even though it's a great shoe, I think it's great. I think it's actually going to take orthotics really, really well. I think it's a really stable neutral shoe, but for what I want, the Ride is going to take the win.
The one area that I think that the 880 takes the win is in walking. I've been doing a bit more walking the last bit, and just the platform had that wider midfoot feels really nice for walking. It's not, I don't like shoes that are bouncy when I'm walking. And so it has a little bit of a flatter, but still nice and cushioned platform. Yep. So it's a really nice shoe. And I think that they've done a nice job with small tweaks that keep it relevant in the flagship model category without it losing its kind of identity in what it's been, because it's been so basic for a long time in a good way, and it's still on the firmer end from a foam perspective than like the More, which is much softer, but it's getting a little bit softer than it used to be as well.
I don't know though. I will say I like walking and lifestyling Alphafly 3s, white on black, a little
That's
orange
because you're
trim.
from Southern California.
I'm
That's
also
why.
a San Francisco Giants fan. It matches pretty nicely there, and just it's good, man. I don't know. It's nice to have a little bounce in your step when you're walking around, if you're going on the street or an airport.
And Matt did say, he just said you were from SoCal. He said you're from SoCal.
Was that?
Yeah.
So
I'm going to say something. So where I used to work, I used to have some of my students come join me, or I'd run there at Silver Lake Reservoir. So shout out all this like Silver Lake Track Club, all that stuff. But the number of people I saw walking in Alphaflies like drove me nuts. I'm like, what the hell are you
For the
doing?
Listeners, I'm joking, by the way, when I make the walking comment about the Alphaflies, just so no one takes me seriously.
I'm just saying, this is like triggering for me where I was like, what are you doing? Like, what, why? This is
That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money for no purpose.
Right.
All right.
Can I add on something on the 880? I will say, Nathan, I think you're 100% right. And something that we do, this is nerding out, but something we'd have to remember is, believe it or not, especially in the United States, more running shoes are sold for walking purposes than they are sold to runners. Yeah. So we have to kind of remember, like, I think the 880 did do a good job and is going to be a really comfortable shoe. And that's
good for running.
It's a great shoe.
It's a great shoe. I think it is also phenomenal for walking, and that I totally understand why New Balance is going the direction it is. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying.
Yep.
But yeah. All right, next.
Great. Our next one is no longer in the daily trading category, but it's a little bit of that performance category. And we're going to put in the Brooks Hyperion Max 2 and the Hoka Mach X2 against one another. I'm going to give a little bit of specs on each. The Hoka Mach X2 comes in at $190. The weight is 8.9 ounces or 252 grams in men's size 9, 7.7 ounces, 218 grams in women's size 8. Stack height is 46 millimeters in the heel, 41 in the forefoot for a 5 millimeter drop. And it does have a Pebax midsole within there. And then the Hyperion Max 2 is $180. So if I'm doing my math right, it's $10 cheaper. Comes in at 9.1 ounces, 258 grams, men's size 9, 8.1 ounces, 229 grams for women's size 8. A little bit lower on the stack height, 36.25 in the heel, 30.25 in the forefoot, 6 millimeter drop. But they're both plated and they kind of are in the similar world for weight and stack, just a little bit different. So what do you all pick? This or that, Hyperion Max 2 or Mach X2? Matt, why don't you start this time?
I'm going to pick the Mach X2, although like I would have taken that shoe farther if the heel had stayed intact. So I unfortunately ripped through it, didn't get to my 100 miles.
Your outsole?
But yeah, I ripped the outsole off at 60 miles. There's a lot of potential in that shoe. I found it was so stiff at first. Like I almost got it. I got a calf spasm, which I almost never get. And then when it broke in, I'm like, this is great. I was using it for everything from workouts to like on daily training, even though we say like, be careful running in like super trainers and stuff like that, or super-esque shoes all the time, but I did. I think Brooks is on the right track, but I found the foam too firm and the plate even more stiff to the point it was uncomfortable for me. I know certain people love that shoe, but
Like Andrew.
Andrew always loves those. So I think in version 3, Brooks might take it back because they're making some foam changes. We'll see what happens. But currently, the Mach X2 is the winner for me. Even though that outsole came off. Hoka, please fix that.
David, what do you think?
I'm a Hyperion Max 2 boy. Yeah, I go the other way. I think for me, the Hyperion Max 2 just feels a little bit more nimble. Some of the things that you highlighted about it kind of negatively impacting it, like as far as like the firmer nature of it, the stiffness, like I feel like that shoe just feels a little bit more stable on foot for me. And I will acknowledge maybe it's a little less responsive in comparison as far as like really hitting the ground and running fast and turning over. But I feel like the transitions are just a little bit more comfortable and it feels a little bit more nimble for me. So it's like if I'm running daily paces for warm up and cool down, and then I'm doing, let's say, a long run workout or something, I feel like I just would lean more towards the Hyperion Max 2 for me personally. Whereas like the Mach X2 feels like it kind of has a time and place there where like, oh, yeah, if you want to rip it and you want it to be that shoe, it can be that shoe. But I feel like the Hyperion Max 2 for me just kind of checks a few more boxes, while maybe not performing quite as fast as the other one.
Which one would you pick, this or that, if it was going to be your complete do-it-all shoe where you had to do your easy runs in it?
Yeah, Hyperion Max 2.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the transitions are just a little smoother for me.
Mach X2. I would stay with it because that's actually literally what I did.
Okay. So y'all, like from front to back, whether it's fast or slow, you're both sticking with your pick. It's not like
I've done easy long runs in the Hyperion Max too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Cool. Well, let's move on to our next one. This is where we're going to be bringing out the Nike Pegasus Premium, and we're going to compare that to two different shoes. The first one we're going to do is you get to pick this or that, the Nike Pegasus or the Nike Pegasus Premium. These shoes couldn't be more different in some ways. Similar in some construction factors like the midsole, the midfoot width and stuff, but yeah, which one do you pick and why? This is not comparing apples to apples, but it is if you're choosing a Nike shoe, which one you picking and why?
Yeah, it's a tough one. For me personally, I'll go first just because this just got here. So I haven't actually run in the Pegasus Premium yet, but I've walked around in it. I've worn it to the clinic a couple times, kind of worked on breaking it in before I run in it shortly. But general feeling on the shoes, as fun as the Pegasus Premium kind of feels walking around, I'm sure it'll have a nice lively ride when I run in it. There's something nice about having something a little bit firmer, closer to the ground, a little bit more flexible design on the Pegasus, where I feel like that just will serve my needs a little bit more, like of everything. Maybe the Pegasus Premium will be a better long run shoe if it works with my mechanics, and maybe it'll be a nice workhorse. But I feel like the Pegasus, I mean, shoot, you could use that as like a walking shoe, a running shoe, a travel shoe. You can even like lifestyle that if you wanted to. Both of those you could probably lifestyle just fine. But like, I don't know. And then that price point too, I feel like there's a pretty massive swing on the price point. So
140 for the Pegasus 41 and 210 for the Pegasus Premium.
Yeah. So unless you really want the Zoom X and the AirPods, or Air Layer, what are they calling that? Air Plate? Like, I don't even know.
What are they calling this?
Air Zoom, but they always call it Air Zoom. Air Zoom, I guess. I don't know.
Theoretically, it's one Air Zoom.
It's a full length Air Zoom layer, I think is how they're coining it.
We'll see, though. I got to run in it. There's a chance that answer may change. But I think for right now, I think looking at it, trying to look at it as objective as I can, I think the Pegasus still wins. Yeah.
And I'm putting this out there mainly because we know that Matt has gotten a good amount of miles in it. So Matt, let's shift it over to you and your take.
I'm very conflicted because the Premium is growing on me. The first several miles were absolutely not comfortable. This shoe, I think David taking time to break it in is really important because it is very stiff. And like, I can't bend this at all. There's no plate in here to my knowledge, but it's really stiff and fairly firm. It took almost until the long run today for me to actually start feeling the bounce in it. It's a heavier shoe for sure. The bounce does offset this. I do appreciate it. It's kind of a fun shoe, but just some of these factors that took a while to break in. Toe box is really tapered for me. There's not a ton of a bevel here, so it's been a little bit clunky. It's weirdly not as unstable as I was expecting, but just my feet have kind of ached after using it. I think because it's so stiff. And for that reason, and that might change with some more miles, I'm going to still go with the traditional Pegasus because of what it can do in terms of it's not as fast, I feel like, as previous pegs, but it's still a decent weight. It's got a good amount of volume and width to it where it's not the narrowest, but it's also not the widest shoe. And yes, the forefoot is tapered, but it does break in. And they've just done a really good job with the bevel. The rear foot is more stable because there's some sidewalls placement. So I got to choose, and especially at the price point, the Pegasus is still more of that shoe I want. Whereas the premium is really interesting, but it's taking a long time to break in, which I think for 210, I would expect that a little bit quicker, but I can appreciate what they're doing. So inline peg 41 still takes the win for me.
And I think our next comparison or this or that will also highlight the confusion about what the peg premium like really beats out. Like what space does it fill? Because you mentioned weight, the peg premium is about 2 ounces. It's like 2 ounces heavier than the Pegasus. So, you have a very heavy shoe. One of the heaviest that's out there right now, to be honest, because usually these shoes that have a lot higher stack have some sort of foam that makes them lighter. Whereas, this one's at like 45 millimeters in the heel and 35 in the forefoot, the peg premium is. And so you look at other shoes in that category we just talked about, some, they're usually an ounce or two lighter than that is. So I think it's really fascinating. Were you going to say something, David?
No, I'm just
Matt.
I was going to say, the bounce is starting to offset some of that weight. It's definitely not something that I would want to run super fast in. I think up tempo stuff is kind of the limit. But yeah, I would agree. So it doesn't feel as heavy on foot as maybe it is, but it's still not a light shoe. But I can give them the premium comment in terms of like full length air zoom unit, Zoom X. I was wondering for a second if they should have replaced because the bottom layer is React. I was like, why wouldn't you guys do a bottom layer of Zoom X? And then I put it on and went, oh yeah, this would have been like, especially with this shape, that would have been wild. Yeah, that would have been too wobbly.
They probably did in the protos.
Maybe. So,
and I think that's probably part of the reason they didn't try to fill in the midfoot either, because of the weight. They were like, we got to shave as much as we can.
I totally get it.
And they just couldn't keep it there. Or maybe the design wasn't like, I mean, we weren't in the rooms when this shoe was developed, and who knows how seriously they wanted it to be like a true trainer, like a really solid shoe. I don't know.
I'm trying to figure out how much I can share. Not that I've worked directly with Nike, so I don't get in trouble. But I think it is meant as a real running shoe. What market that's for, we're going to start learning about. But this is not the only shoe they're doing this with. So I think it's meant truly as a real running shoe. I will say though, it does look awesome. Yeah, this shoe is sexy. Like that. I mean, they did a good job.
It was super nice.
Yeah.
I honestly think I will like it when I start running in it. There's a pretty clean shot of Rye Benjamin full stride on the track. Yeah. I'm like, dang, I want to be like Rye.
Yeah. So
shout out Rye.
Yeah. I've got 40 miles on it. So, I'm going to keep hitting it. So I think it's a real running shoe for sure.
All right. So we're going to now take the Pegasus Premium, and it's going to be a this or that between the Pegasus Premium and another shoe we've been testing recently with a similar stack height of the ASICS Nimbus 27. So the stack height difference is 1.5 millimeters between the two, and they definitely feel very different. But what do you pick, this or that between the two, Matt? Why don't we just start with you? David and I will color commentary on this.
Yeah, I'm also very biased because I am absolutely loving the Nimbus. I have 100-something miles on this. I need to do a 100-mile video review that I've been slacking on. I don't know if a lot of people are going to agree with me on this, because the new Nimbus it's slightly soft when you walk in it, but it's firmer when you run in it, which I like. And I found this shoe very stable, a little bit snappier than its weight. It's durable. It's not a shoe for faster runs, but just a lot of the mechanics of the shoe work really, really well for me. So for me, in terms of runnable, it's a little bit wider fit that does take some time to break in. I think, the Nimbus is going to take the win for me, but that's also because it's a refined shoe after 27 versions. So I think the Pegasus Premium some time to work out some of that stuff. We might see that, but right now dude, this is like one of my trainers of the year, if not the trainer of the year right now for me.
Well,
to be fair,
great.
we're only in February, so
Yeah.
Get a caveat.
Hot taking all of our preseason favorites here.
Yeah.
It's like I ran in one shoe this year. It's definitely my favorite. Just kidding. Been more than that.
I will say the Nimbus does feel a little bit firmer in this one. And in the past couple of years, I've actually kind of struggled with some of the Nimbus models because of how soft they've been. Where like my foot will kind of start hurting a little bit, like the intrinsic foot muscles. It just, however I land, I just don't agree with the platforms quite as well. And I didn't get that nearly as much with the newest Nimbus. I think this is probably like, in the last maybe 4 Nimbus models here, this is probably my favorite Nimbus. With that said, though, I think kind of alluding to what we were saying earlier, I like a touch more responsiveness. And I think having that little bit of Zoom X in there might actually sway me when I start to run in the premium. But again, I haven't run in it, so I can't really give you a hard answer on one way or another here yet. But I have a feeling I'm going to like it. Like the little tiny bits of quick dynamic motions I've done, like in the clinic demonstrating something for someone or something, or doing like a little jump or a little jog or something, like the little bits I have done, I think I am going to like it. But
it's got that firmer bounce, which is not like, and that bounce gets more substantial the more you wear it.
I do like a good firm bounce.
I feel like there's a big price difference even between these two shoes. It's like a $50 difference between the Nimbus 27 and I think it's 165. 165. Yeah. And I think that if we look at even within the ASICS line, the shoe that is most comparably priced is actually the Superblast. And so if you were going to say Superblast versus, so, so is it Superblast or
Nimbus?
No, not even the Nimbus, Superblast or the Peg Premium.
Yep.
Oh, no, that's what I meant. Like, yeah. Are you asking that question right now?
Yeah, sorry. Off script, this or that.
Yeah, I don't feel like those are comparable enough. Just I think the weight is the biggest thing.
The price is comparable. You got $210. What are you going to spend it on?
But the weight and the function is totally different. And I think if you kept the Peg Premium exactly as it is and it was 2 ounces lighter, this would be a very different story.
But it's
although it's actually like 3 ounces. It's like 3 ounces heavier than the Superblast, right?
The Peg Premium drips pretty hard.
It does drip pretty hard. I get it.
Are you really debating in your mind which one you would pick or no? Or are you saying like this is clearly
me or no?
Oh, you never said which one you'd pick.
Oh, it would be Superblast too. Yeah.
I don't know, man. Get back to me in 2 weeks.
Yeah, we'll talk to you.
Yeah.
I feel like
running it. I do have I feel like the Superblast 2 would be hard to beat at its price point and durability and everything.
Durability, weight, responsiveness,
all of it,
stability,
versatility.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll find out.
I think I will give the Peg Premium credit in that, like, I think as they refine this shoe, I think there is some major potential here. We'll just have to see how this kind of goes.
It's a unique offering for sure. All right, so our next one is between the new Mizuno Neo Vista and the New Balance SC Trainer version 3. So just to give a few specs on these two, the price points are they should be both at 180. Yep, 180 for both models basically. The Neo Vista comes in at 9.4 ounces, 266 grams in men's size 9, or 7.8 and 221 grams in women's size 8. And then if we jump over to the SC Trainer, we've got 9.2 ounces, or 261 grams in a men's size 9.5, 7.3 ounces, 209 grams in women's size 7. Stack height, 40 millimeters in the heel, 34 on the forefoot of the SC Trainer, and 44.5 millimeters, 36.5 in the forefoot in the Neo Vista. So a lot of similarities. They're floating in that, 40 to 45 millimeter heel realm. They are both slightly similar in weight. The Fuel Cell SC Trainer is a bit lighter, but kind of both in that super trainer realm. So which one do you pick between those two?
Yeah, and to be clear, it's Vista versus SC Trainer.
Yes.
I thought I heard you say Zen.
No, I meant to say Vista if I did.
Yeah. I'm going to go SC Trainer 3. I feel like the upper construction of the Neo Vista, my foot just moved around just a little more than I would have liked it to. It's the same thing that I had with the Neo Zen, where it's like I could see myself really liking the shoe, but there's just a couple of small things that are taking away from that, where I felt like the upper fit of the SC Trainer 3 was much nicer on my foot. I felt like the Fuel Cell, ironically, as soft as Fuel Cell is, this is one of the firmer iterations of Fuel Cell, and I think one of the better integrations of their rocker, because that's another shoe that like the Nimbus, I kind of struggled with the previous SC trainers, and like this one I actually liked. I think I got it up to probably 80 or 90 miles, which is a lot for me. I mean, with how many shoes we're testing. So I got to go SC trainer on that one.
Matt, what do you think?
I just remember the comment about durability, and the SC trainer actually did very well. I think for me, this might have been a teeny bit different if I'd gotten maybe a half size up in the SC trainer, that might have changed just a little bit. And I totally agree with David about the fitting stuff with the Vista was just a little bit off. But man, that midsole of the Vista was so bouncy, and I was able to do so much in it. And I normally don't like softer stuff, but I think the ability to do longer runs and some pretty awesome workouts in the Vista put it ahead for me. And the SC trainer was just firmer than I was expecting. Not that that's a bad thing. It was great, stable, neutral, nice, super trainer.
Firm bounce.
Yeah, firm. I didn't feel like it was that bouncy though. I just felt like it was more firm than I was expecting for the amount of stack height. And so that actually, for the SC trainer, so that actually worked surprisingly well in different ways, but I just think I need a size larger, a half size larger. So I got to give the nod to the Vista on this one with that bouncy foam that is, yes, EVA, that I was totally wrong about again, as for talking to everybody who found that out. But yeah, I'm going to choose Vista because of that bounce.
I think that Mizuno chose for a lot of their new models in this Neo world to go with that booty construction upper. Mm-hmm. And inherently with a booty construction, you're going to either work with it or you're not. And there isn't a lot of versatility in how you can get it to lace down because the tongue can't slide across the upper. So that's just inherent in the design that's going to potentially either be awesome or not as awesome. Like for me, Neo Vista upper is great. Neo Zen is a little bit more loose, not so bad, but there's enough that I can move a little bit in there, and there's not much you can do about it with a booty construction upper.
Nope.
I think, interestingly, I think that from a bounce and softness of the foam plus the rocker profile, the Neo Vista is most similar to the original SC trainer. Where
agreed.
I think they feel pretty similar.
Lighter.
Because the first one was pretty heavy. It was 11 and a half ounces, give or take.
But just from the bounce perspective and the rocker profile, they ran similarly in that way. But the versatility of the Neo Vista is much higher.
Yep.
These are two that I actually have gotten some running in, so I'm going to chime in here. And I would also pick the SC Trainer version 3. I agree with David on the idea of it being a firmer bounce, and it just felt really controlled and smooth. I think that softer, more noticeable rocker, I like it. It's fun, but I don't usually get into rhythm. And I think that's kind of the difference for me. I could get more miles in it for sure, and I look forward to doing that, especially I think they're updating that model. And it's close. I really liked them both. I think that it's a close call, but I think that they're definitely different. Which is nice. Like these are two shoes that I think perform at a similar level, but perform differently depending on if you want that like rocker super bouncy soft, or if you want more controlled rocker, a little bit firmer bounce, you would go with the SC Trainer. Okay, let's move to our next one. We're going into our, I think, first and only racing shoe conversation. And that is the Nike Alphafly 3 or the Adidas Adios Pro 4.
Oh.
Been thinking about this the whole time.
The pain in your eyes. Isn't it funny? We're talking about running shoes and we're like, oh gosh, don't do this to me.
I don't like this question. And you keep asking questions I don't like, Nate.
David goes first. I'm going to
have to... Okay.
Let's just tell everybody the irony of this is that a lot of these questions were your ideas, and you're the one who put them, and I'm just the one saying it.
That's Fair.
That is true. He was like, make some hard ones. And I basically just like spitballed, I don't know, like 10.
Yep.
And we probably kept maybe 6. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like,
What do you think though?
Yeah, man. Okay. This might be an unpopular opinion, but Adidas Adios Pro 4.
Wow.
No, the Adios Pro 4 was like almost a racing shoe of the year for me last year. I just liked that Edge Paris like a lot. Like to overstep the Edge Paris would have been very, very hard from ASICS. So kudos to them. But the Adios Pro 4 is pretty darn good. And it's lighter, I think, was one of the big things for me. The traction's better. The stability is, for me, better. I can acknowledge, remember the Adios Pro 3, my foot, like, however the upper was and the way the sole fairing was, I really was so excited for it. And it was one of the most heartbroken I've ever been when you put on a shoe and it doesn't work for you.
Heartbreaking.
It genuinely was, because I couldn't finish the workout. I remember that, where I had to take it off. And anyways, Adios Pro 4 is better. It locks down, I think, better around the midfoot and the heel for me. It just cinches down. My foot's on the platform, and I can feel how I'm moving on the shoe really well. The Alphafly 3, a little bit more spacious, more accommodating for the foot swelling or wider feet if you have issues for that. This is definitely more of a streamlined fit, being the Adios Pro 4. I mean, if I just hold it up, you can kind of see that. Like, heel and midfoot's pretty dialed in there. And then it widens out a little bit for the forefoot. But again, it's more of a normal fit. It's not like, this isn't a very spacious shoe.
You do have a half size up, though.
No, this is size 9.5, isn't it? Or is
you
it?
Sure?
Oh, snap. You're right. It's a size. You're right. I'm wearing yours. I forgot. You're right. How did I forget that?
It's okay. We forget. So Adidas sometimes will send stuff to us, and like I'll get an original one, and they'll send me a second one.
Well, then with that, especially
in
consideration, I'm so sorry. I can't believe I forgot that.
It's okay.
You're right. This is a size 10, and I wear 9.5 usually.
Yeah,
and it fits me like a glove in size 10. So I'm a half size up.
Shout out, go a half size up in that shoe if you want to run longer. It's a great shoe, but go a half size up for sure.
But it's very dialed in. The traction's very good. I feel like I'm able to kind of grip and really use the shoe the way I want to. And I tend to like some of those sharper toe spring shoes, kind of like the Endorphin Elite of the past. And this is one of the shoes where I felt like it kind of matches up to what the Endorphin Elite 1 was, where it was kind of this like slightly firmer, bouncy, but still very highly cushioned shoe, right? That you could just take forever. Like, I almost want to just make this my long run shoe if I'm not going to race in it. Like, I really like the Adios Pro 4. And not that I don't like the Alphafly 3. The Alphafly 3 is really good. Great forefoot traction, responsive ride, a little bit wider base on it. Like, a lot of the stuff you'd want to check, it does check. I just think the way my mechanics are and the way this shoe is, it makes me feel a little bit more nimble, I think, is what I like about it. But it doesn't sacrifice the rocker profile in the forefoot. So if I kind of get, for lack of a better word, a little bit lazy, or like I'm falling in rhythm with the shoe and my cadence and my stride. Some of these super shoes make you kind of feel like you're constantly rolling forward. I feel like I can kind of just lean into it and fall into it in the Adios Pro 4 a little bit nicer and still have that kind of lightweight, nimble, grippy feeling. So I'm an Adios Pro 4 boy on that one. But they're both really freaking good.
Great. Matt, what's your pick?
Man, I still haven't decided. So let me walk through this a little bit. The Alphafly 3 is, in my opinion, thanks, Nathan. The Alphafly 3 is the slightly faster shoe for me. I also like that for me, it's not that it's a stable shoe, but the geometry is just a little bit wider, which works a little better for me. The Adios Pro 4, though, if I had a size 10.5, I might have a little different opinion, but I also will say Adidas did a phenomenal job of bringing that shoe up. I felt version 3 was great, but it was more, this is not meant to be rude, but it was more recreational. It wasn't as fast as the Adios Pro 4 is. Like, the 3 was stable. I think it was a great option for a lot of newer runners or people trying to get into super shoes. And I did tons of long runs in that shoe. The Adios Pro 4 got way more aggressive, way more bouncy, way faster, way softer,
more narrow.
And more narrow. And that, they dropped a ton of weight off that shoe. Yeah. And despite making it lighter, the durability is phenomenal. I have over 100 miles on my Adios Pro 4, despite it fitting a half size short and giving me, I think, a permanently black toenail. The things we do for dogs running.
I'm kidding.
Okay. Considering, can I pull my foot up that high?
Mobility check.
I don't know if it was the Glycerin Max or that shoe that did that to me, but both of which I've really enjoyed. But that durability is so good, and that's somewhere that I'm a little bit frustrated with the Alphafly 3. That the
heel could be better on that.
It's super bouncy, it's super fast. I haven't used it as much because I would save it for even the optimal race, and because at 20 miles the heel rubber was already coming off, and I'm like, I'm going to rip and destroy this shoe. So if I ever want to use it for race, I can't keep using this. So,
dude, thanks for calling me out on the Adios Pro 4.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
No, that's a genuine thank you.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I completely forgot. I don't know how I forgot, but
it's okay.
Like that. I genuinely was like reporting as if it was a 9.5 when it was indeed a 10.
For those who don't know, I send David a lot of stuff. If there's ever, for whatever reason, a company sends me an extra pair, I'm like, we got to get this to David. And then sometimes he will still take.
Or if the heel is somewhat remotely intact.
I have had to repair shoes and send them to David going, oh my gosh, David, I'm so sorry. And he's like, all right. And then he goes, takes it on trail the next day. And I'm like, my repair work for nothing. So I'm going to go.
Outsole rubber. Who needs outsole rubber?
Because of its purpose and the speed component, I am going to, and because it's just a teeny bit more stable for me, I'm going to go with the Alphafly 3. Yeah. Even though I very much appreciate the Adios Pro 4, and that might change if I try a half size up. But for right now, they're very close, but Alphafly nudges just a little bit.
Great.
I will say too, I think the Zoom X in the Alphafly 3 does feel a tad bit more responsive too.
Yeah.
Like how you're saying, like that, like kind of faster shoe.
It throws you forward.
Yeah. The Alphafly is so aggressive, it slightly scares me. Yeah. So I got to give it that credit.
All right. Our next one is between the two ASICS shoes, the ASICS Superblast 2 and the ASICS Novablast 5. So I'll talk about these because I've tested both of these, and I think for myself as a recreational runner, like highly competitive, if I was looking to buy a shoe, I would just buy the Novablast 5. I think that it's a really well-performing shoe, and it can do a lot. Like it really can do workouts for a lot of folks. Especially, my half marathon PR is around an hour and a half. And I could do everything that I would need for half marathon training in the Novablast 5, from my easy runs to any workout that I would need to do. It just has that much versatility to it. It's got a good amount of cushion. It's not, for me, it's on the firmer end of the cushioning spectrum after they've done a nice job, like widening out the platform after like the first two versions. They've really dialed that in a little bit better. So I think it's a great shoe. I also love running in the Novablast, but if I can spend, what is the Novablast 5 is $140 versus $200. Like I think I'm going to get just as much out of the Novablast as I personally would out of the Superblast if I'm not training for, marathon might change my mind a little bit. Definitely if I was doing ultra distances and like tons of high mileage stuff, that's where my mind might change, but that's not me. So I'm going Novablast for sure.
I don't know. I think with all the same considerations, I still go Superblast too. And my main reason for that being is if it's like your everything shoe, the foam can be worth it when you go to race day. And so whether that's marathon or half marathon, or even like in your camp, like of those paces, like 10K, 5K, that could totally still be a shoe that you race at those distances.
I should say as I was talking about it, I'm assuming I would have bought a racing shoe as well. So
yeah, I would have pure training shoe.
Yes, just training.
Okay.
I don't know if that changes anything. Yes,
if it's just training, probably Novablast. But if we're looking for that versatility that you can pull that shoe out and it's your old reliable and you've done your easy runs, you've done your long runs, you've done your workouts, and you want to know what you're going to be using and feel good about it and know the shoe's going to hold you up, I mean, that could tackle a marathon easily.
Yeah.
Totally. Or an ultra or anything really. So I think I'm going to go Superblast 2 on that one.
Yep.
Not a knock on the Novablast 5. I think especially at the price point, it is an amazing shoe. But if I'm choosing between the two and I'm spending my own money and I'm like, well, this is my shoe, like I'm gonna go Superblast too.
Matt, what about you?
What do you think I'm going to say first?
Plus, that was a good firm bounce.
No, not that. Which one do you think I'm going to pick?
I think from a durability standpoint and a versatility and how much mileage you put in, I would guess you're going to pick the Superblast.
So I'm actually going to flip and choose the Novablast for some surprising reasons. I really appreciate that shoe. I think the Superblast 2, yes, does have some incredible versatility. It's stable neutral, but I'm getting better durability out of the Novablast. And if we're talking about, I want this like pure training shoe, I think the Novablast 5 is better because A, it's $140, which is phenomenal. It does, as I got it over 100 miles, it took a while for the Novablast foam to like break in. So now instead of kind of being that like softer, like not bouncy is the right, it is bouncy, but not in like a overly bouncy. Now that it's firmed up just a teeny bit with some miles, it's gotten a teeny bit more snappy, which I appreciate. I could not do workouts in it the way I can do it with the Superblast, but the fit is better in the Novablast. It's just way more comfortable. It's not totally stable neutral, but it's also almost there. But the durability is phenomenal. Like I didn't even make a dent in the outsole, whereas the Superblast 2, I don't think made as big a changes as I wanted. It's still, that's one of the top on the market, but that toe box is still a little bit tapered. I was expecting it to get lighter, and at $200, I don't know. I thought it was going to be a little smoother. So it's a great shoe. There's just enough things going, at this $200 price point, if I was going to have to choose like a Superblast versus getting the Novablast and a racing shoe, I'd rather do the second option. So I'm going to choose the Novablast because the Superblast is great, but Novablast I think is the more appropriate shoe for a lot of people, especially for its like that training purpose. But as David mentioned, if I wanted a do-it-all shoe, the Superblast wins hand down. But for that training purpose, for the fit, the smoothness, the durability, Novablast is doing phenomenal. So I got to give it to that. Not that I don't like Superblast, but they did a good job with the Novablast 5.
Cool. All right, we got two more. The first one is going back to some training shoes. Both of these are not as popular probably on the market as we had for like the Ride 18 and the 880, and they're not seen as often, but I think they're both high performing shoes in the last year. And that's between the Mizuno Neo Zen and the 361 Eleos.
I'm really let down that it wasn't a Carhu or a Diadora.
Sorry.
Should that be our bonus question?
Or an Anta.
GT256732s.
C202 GT5. Gosh.
For the listeners who don't know, we make fun of these companies' names because it's like so much to keep it like.
Make fun of is a strong word. I think is have fun with. Like
fine,
I think
have fun with.
We have fun with it.
I never called it the C3PO. Okay,
that was me.
That was me.
I was proud of that one. But let's come back. I'm gonna reel us back in, and I guess I'll talk first. I was gonna let someone else speak first, but nobody's talking about it. And this was actually pretty hard for me because one of my favorite shoes to train in last year was the Eleos, and I really loved how soft it was, which is weird for me because usually I don't like softer trainers. But it was great for easy runs. It had some bounce to it. Had forefoot flexibility. It came in like $145. It was super nice, and it was a very different experience from 361. I think in the same way, these new Neo shoes from Mizuno have been a new experience for the company and kind of a turning of a new leaf. And I have a lot more miles to put in the Neo Zen. I have my testing miles, but not much beyond that, whereas I got more in the Eleos. But I think because the Zen is a little bit lighter and could handle some speed a little bit more, I lean that way. If one thing isn't a factor that I'll come back to. So I like the versatility of the Zen. I think they both have a similar midsole feeling where they're softer, kind of mushier in some ways, but not mushy to the point where they feel too unstable underfoot. They kind of firm up as you put some stuff into it, but they have there's a little less flexibility in the Neo Zen, which was kind of nice for, again, picking up the pace a little bit. So I think I lean Neo Zen slightly, partially because the booty construction wasn't too off for me. I said I could have a little bit of wiggle, but for what I've been doing for running, it didn't throw me off. However, it is winter here in Wisconsin, and the Neo Zen upper is so thin that like it's hard to use it for winter because it's just too cold. So I didn't
know that it got cold there.
Yeah, haven't heard of that, huh?
Cue conversation about who was it that commented on one of the videos about like, oh, Southern California doesn't know what cold was. That's back when I was living there, and like, David, I think you and I got slightly offended.
Well, I think I've said this a million times.
Some of the stuff you send in like the Oregon weather though is like the same as here.
100, yeah, it's 100%. That's true.
I think cold, quote unquote cold, and what feels cold is very relative to a point. And then there's like dangerous cold, which we get here.
Oh, yeah,
like we had the day where it was negative
-0. It's
It was negative 22 before wind chill last week. So it was very cold, and that's a different category of cold. But the upper is just too thin. So the Eleos upper is a little bit thicker, and I can do a lot better with that and like some wool socks. But that would be a very real decision if I had to purchase shoes going towards the winter season of running. I would go Eleos over it because of the upper and being thicker if I didn't want to get like a specialty GTX shoe. But what do y'all think?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't get too cold here, so I'm going to go Neo Zen.
Hot take, 28 degrees in Oregon feels warmer than 40 degrees in Southern California. I will give you that.
Well, for us, we get the humidity, so if it drops to like close to freezing, like if it's like, because we had a day that was like 36 a week ago. But like for us, like it gives you that little like chill in your bone, you know, it's like when you have that fog and then it just like sits low, like it's weird. It's like when I was cold in San Francisco, like when I used to go to school in the Bay, and it was just different. I don't know.
Yeah. It hasn't been as bad because
obviously it's not 0 degrees. I understand that.
we just had the driest, I think the driest January in history here, where it's been very dry, cold, but not nearly as, it doesn't feel that bad. Anyway, so I'm going to go the other way and choose a 361 Eleos, which I don't even know if I pronounced that correctly. And I've been super self-conscious about that.
Okay, I don't know if I'm either.
All right.
I think it's Eleos.
Yeah, Eleos. 361 is going to take the win for me just because I appreciate the Neo Zen and Mizuno. Like, this new leaf is really cool to see after being, consistency is not a bad thing, but there wasn't a lot of change. To see this totally new range is really cool, and I think people are really loving this stuff. But 361, these new foams, I think they need some more credit because they have done a really good job. They're great. And this is off topic, but the 361 Miro Nude is a phenomenal racing shoe, even though obviously it doesn't last for me, but that's me. So the Eleos is also has a little more sole flare, which for me with the bouncy foam makes it just a teeny bit more stable than the Zen, and the upper lockdown's a little better. So I got to give the nod to 361 on this one. And I still want to try so I got a couple of super racing shoes I'm curious about. But
I will say too, to elaborate on my answer, it's not just the cold. The sole flaring actually was a little bit much for me on the Eleos. Like it was almost a little too much, to where like I was kind of adjusting my foot a little bit, and I would kind of get this little pressure on the front of my knee, and then that rocker is really early on the front. Yeah. So I just I don't know, I just couldn't quite figure the shoe out entirely. I can appreciate it though. The materials on it were really fun. Yeah, like I could see that having a lot of people really like that shoe.
And these shoes are both 150 and down. Like, which is crazy. I think they feel better than that.
Yeah, like don't if the Neo Zen upper cleaned up a little bit. Oh my gosh, that could be a trainer of the year. Yep, like that. Yeah, but Neo Zen would be my pick in this situation.
Great. Well, we're going to move on to our last one, and it's between two performance trainers that are similar. They have some form of a plate. They've got a super foam inside of them, and it is the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4 versus the Nike Zoom Fly 6.
Gosh darn it.
Little bit of things about specs on these. They both come in at $170. Weight-wise, there's a 0.4 ounce difference, with the Zoom Fly being just slightly heavier. The stack heights, there's a little bit more stack in the Zoom Fly 6. It's up at 40 millimeters, where the Endorphin Speed 4 is down at 36 millimeters. There's the nylon plate in the Endorphin Speed 4. I don't know. there's a lot of cool stuff going on in these shoes, and curious to hear which one y'all are going to pick. Go ahead,
you
Matt.
first. You go first.
So I really appreciate what Nike did with the Zoom Fly 6. I think previous Zoom Flies, I don't mean to be rude, just weren't great. I did not feel bad for not reviewing them. What?
David and I said they weren't it at the same time, and we're just...
Got it. Understood.
I'm trying to see if there's like a just do it somewhere in here.
So I think it is a much better shoe, and I think it is doing a great job. However, it was just too stiff for me, whereas the Speed 4 was something that felt good almost the second I put it on, and I've run well over 100 miles in that shoe, and I just really like the Speed 4 for its versatility, for it being truly like a slightly more flexible version of the Pro that I think is going to work for as a racing shoe for a lot of people. The Zoom Fly 6 is very similar in that regard. I think it is a phenomenal alternative to the Alphafly for people that if the Alphafly is too aggressive, they still want a carbon plated shoe with a little bounce to it. But the Speed 4 wins just a little bit because it's a little bit more snappy, a little more versatile, but it's just a smoother transition to me where it took a little while for that Zoom Fly to break in.
David, what you got?
That's a tough one for me. I honestly really like both shoes. I did a comparison video on the YouTube channel as well, looking at both of these and kind of what my final conclusions were on those. So if you want a really in-depth thing on that, you can go there. Shoot, man. I think I'm going to go Endorphin Speed 4, but not for the reason most people probably would think. And I think this is one of those situations where the upper wins. I think the upper just is a little bit nicer. It fits my foot better. It's a little bit more plush. It just feels nice. And it locks down well. And so you can do everything you need and everything you want. Not that you can't do that with the Zoom Fly 6, but I feel like the tongue and the materials around here, it just wasn't quite as cozy. It feels a little bit more synthetic. It locks the foot down well, but I think it just, I don't know. You can even just kind of see like the proportions of it doesn't really, it kind of crinkles a little bit, and it kind of, the formation of it isn't quite as smooth. And I feel like the upper of the Endorphin Speed 4 is much more adaptable. Now, if I'm really getting nitpicky on these shoes, the stack height's a little bit lower on the Endorphin Speed 4. The grip's a little bit better. I think you can hit the track a little bit easier in the Endorphin Speed 4. However, really long efforts, long run, marathon simulation, Zoom Fly 6 is probably going to win. But the Endorphin Speed 4 can still do it. And so I think that's kind of where, if I'm really, if I have to pick one, I think I'm going to go with the Endorphin Speed 4, but you could totally justify one or the other depending on what your task or what your goal is on either shoe. Why did I write that question? Like, that's an awful question to ask somebody.
That's your fault.
It's a good one.
I don't like this game anymore.
I'm not playing. Take your ball and join Luca in LA.
Oh man. Yeah, that's a good one. Luca or AD, this or
that. Matt, you go first. Just kidding. Let's not go there.
That's why I made that look earlier, because I really thought for the last question you guys were going to do something like that.
No,
and I'm like, oh man,
we are. We just did.
Screw it.
No, we're not doing it. But I will say,
out of that one.
just to timestamp this, we're recording this on the day after the Luka Doncic and Anthony Davis trade happened. So that's where that's coming from. Most people, I don't think that the crossover between NBA fans and shoe geeks is very large. If it is, prove us wrong, and you can tell us about it down below. But thank you all for joining us for another This or That episode. We always love doing these together and look forward to more episodes where we're going to get to have conversations both about shoes, but also go into the world of rehabilitation. If there are certain topics regarding rehab that you want us to hit, if there are certain conditions that you just want our take on in terms of like overviews of the etiology, where it comes from, how you can rehab through, what are your treatment options, we'd love to have those episodes. They do take us a lot more prep because we want to make sure that we are giving you the most up-to-date and accurate information. So let us know below if there's a certain condition that either you've dealt with or people who deal with on a regular basis that you want us to prioritize in this year. But thanks for joining us, and we'll see y'all next time.